Hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Brune here with Go 24/7 for an instant reaction of LSU's loss to Auburn here on Wednesday, December 29th. Obviously, the game is in Auburn. I am not in Auburn, so I'm here and I can give y'all a instant reaction to the game and just my initial thoughts on it. Usually, as y'all know, I do a Twitter takeaway. If y'all don't follow my Twitter, it's at Matthew Brune _. I usually do Twitter 2-minute takeaways real quick after home games as I'm walking to the car. It's usually the easiest thing to do. But this is a road game. I am not in Baton Rouge. I'm home for the holidays still before I go back. So, wanted to get this out to y'all, just give y'all my initial thoughts, takeaways on the game that was, and what stood out to me. So, let's get right to it because everybody has a strong opinion on this game, right? Obviously, this was supposed to be a big game for LSU, something that obviously fans wanted to win. And it's also the way that they lost, right? It's not just that they lost. It's the fact they shot 29%, 28.6% from the field, 6 of 29 from three as a team, and your best players didn't play like their best players, right? And it's concerning because to this point, we haven't had another litmus test for LSU, right? We've seen them play good teams like Belmont, Ohio, Wake Forest, Penn State, so on and so forth, but we haven't seen them play an SEC team. We haven't seen them play even probably a top 40 team in the country. So Auburn presented that. And then some. They were ranked number 11 in the country by the AP poll, number 13 in the country by KenPom. And this game was also at Auburn. Auburn is Wade talked about it a lot. Auburn is one of the toughest places to play. And so now you're going into that environment with only two players that have experienced SEC basketball before in an actual environment, right? Because last year, as Wade likes to say, they were playing in front of cardboard cutouts. So you're going in there with only Xavier Pinson and Darius Days as your two leaders, right? Senior leaders. And I think that's where you have to start when you look at this game, right? It's easy to point the finger at other guys, then we'll get to them in a second, and I will point fingers at everybody. But I just want to say before we get started, nobody on this team played well. Nobody. Justice Williams probably was the brightest spot, and that's because we had such low expectations from going in, and he actually was 2 of 6 from the field, 7 points in 24 minutes, had the best plus-minus of anybody on the team. Justice Williams, the only bright spot probably. Everybody else on the team played poorly, bad to awful. Like, that's probably what it was. And I think it starts with Xavier Pinson and Darius Days. Like, the way that they played in the first half especially is something that we've seen before, right? And they were lax. They took some bad shots. They were very, very passive. They picked up some cheap fouls, especially Pinson. And it didn't settle the team into the game at all. If you go and look at my 3 keys to the game, number 1 was Pinson and Days getting them off to the right start. And they didn't do that. Pinson, for a lot of the first half, was nowhere to be found. In the second half, he picked it up a bit. I think that's when he had assist through all 3 of his field goals in the second half in that run that he had. But other than that, him and Days were nowhere to be found. And Days obviously tried to shoot the ball. It went 3 of 12 from 3. That's not good enough at the end of the day. And it unsettled everybody else because then you turn to others to have to make plays, right? Eric Gaines was like, well, shoot, I got to do something. Mwani Wilkinson still didn't do much on the offensive side of the ball. Eason was kind of taken out of the game to an extent. Justice Williams came in, felt like he had to do stuff. So it just put a lot more pressure on everybody else, and that's what you can't have in SEC play. You got to have your best players playing like their best players. And I've been critical, and I've been questioning Pinson and Gaines as a backcourt, as a point guard duo for a lot of this year, kind of just to myself and to people I talk with. But I still think Pinson's better than what he showed. I think both are better than what they showed tonight. And they're going to have to be because this team cannot win games where Pinson and Gaines are shooting a combined 4 of 20 from the field, have 11 turnovers, and Gaines had 0 assists and Pinson had 3 assists. You can't win games that way with your point guards. So that's going to have to be fixed. And then you go to everybody else, and I think Days kind of speaks for itself. You really want him. I didn't think he played the worst game of his life, but you want more from him, especially early on. So now that we got that out of the way, though, I do want to talk about, and I guess I can go through the other players. Efton Reed completely looked overmatched against Walker Kessler, as I kind of expected going into the game. I didn't think he's clearly shorter than Walker Kessler. Kessler is the best shot blocker, if not the second best shot blocker in the entire country. And so we knew what we were getting into with this game, right? If y'all read any of the preview stuff, if you followed what I was saying on the board at all, you knew what we were going into this game. Walker Kessler is a freakishly large human in the paint. And so with that being the case, I knew Reed wasn't going to have a chance to score on him. Now, I was a little disappointed in the opportunities that Reed had when Kessler wasn't in the game. He was unable to finish, or he got blocked, or he got stripped. So that was something he's going to have to, and he missed his 2 free throws, right? Yeah, he went over 2 from the free throw line. So it's like, you want him to be a little more active in cases where he can, but when Kessler's in the game, I just didn't think he had a chance. Wilkinson, I thought was probably the second best player on the team, obviously adjusting for expectations. But Tari Eason, I'll wrap up my player-by-player talk with him. Tari Eason going 5 of 12 from the field for 11 points, ends up fouling out 7 boards, 2 blocks, 2 steals. I just thought he didn't get the ball enough on offense. Like, I really felt like there were opportunities for him to be more involved, and it ended up being Gaines or Pinson taking the ball, driving, shooting, or Days shooting, and Eason just kind of was like, all right, well, I mean, because he ended up with 12 shots. It's not a low amount of shots, but it just didn't feel like he was involved enough in what the offense was trying to do. And I like him with anybody on him, really. Like, and we'll get into a separate topic in a second, but I like the way he can get to the rim and create for others. So I do think Tari Eason has to be a more a focal point for this team moving forward, but also he can't foul out of games. That's 5 fouls in 25 minutes. That's not a good rate for him against Auburn. So he's going to have to improve as well, but there are going to be opportunities for him to get the ball in his hands more. We also have to talk about Brandon Murray. Brandon Murray did not play the starting 2-guard for LSU, and he led the team in minutes for a lot of the season, if he doesn't still at this point. I mean, he is a glue guy for this team, and not having him, I think, forced you saw a domino effect, right? You saw Eric Gaines try to do too much. You saw Justice Williams, while he was fine, you saw Justice Williams have to be inserted into the lineup, which, while he was fine, I mean, I still think Brandon Murray is a better player than Justice Williams at this point. Maybe Justice can evolve into that play, but for this game specifically, I would rather have Brandon Murray. And so not having Brandon Murray sucks, but I still don't think he changes the result of this game completely because of how this game was played. So with all that being said, there are a couple key takeaways we have to go through here, and the first thing is obviously the three-point shooting, right? And for anybody who's been following this team, y'all know three-point shooting has been this way the entire season. They are not a prolific three-point shooting team at all. Here I have the stats up. Coming into the game, they were 32.2% from three, 217th in the country. They can't shoot, and it starts and ends with Darius Days, in my opinion. He goes 3 of 12 from 3 tonight. He has to be closer to 40% for this team to have a chance in these games. And we've talked about it on the board. I might be beating a dead horse at this point for people who have been paying attention, but Darius Days is a guy who needs to be able to shoot the ball at a higher clip. And if he doesn't, the spacing just goes right down the toilet for this team. And that's why you see Tari Eason maybe not be as involved as he would like to be, because then when he's driving, they just collapse on him. Efton Reed was one-on-one situation, so that's different. But a lot of these drives aren't open because they're just leaving non-shooters. And while Days can shoot, he hasn't been able to shoot recently. Pinson, same thing. You live with him shooting. That's before even getting to Eric Gaines, who missed 21 straight threes before finally making one. So in that respect, missing Brandon Murray hurts. I'm just interested to see what Justice Williams can do moving forward. But the spacing and the shooting that this team lacks is really, really apparent when you play good defenses like Auburn. And Auburn isn't even as good of a defense as Tennessee, right? Tennessee's out here with the number 2 KenPom defense in the country. LSU's number 1. Auburn, I believe, was somewhere in the teens. So, again, that's good, but it's not groundbreaking to this point. So, yeah, that's the big thing, is the shooting is going to really hinder this team moving forward. At Darius Days, I think it starts with Brandon Murray is going to have to come back. He's going to have to shoot the ball well. Gaines just took way too many three-point attempts tonight, and he's got to be more of just a distributor at this point. To go 1 of 7 from 3, to shoot 7 times for a guy who's missed 21 straight times. I know the old saying, shoot or shoot, but he's not a shooter, so he shouldn't be shooting. So that's tough. And then you look at it, and I want to make sure I emphasize this because I haven't gotten to this yet. This is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a bad loss. This is not a bad loss. This is the first, let's say the first top 40 team LSU has played this year. It's the first true road game LSU has played this year. And it is a team in Auburn who I predicted Auburn to win this game, and I'm not saying that like it's a crazy bold statement or I should be applauded for that, but the writing was on the wall kind of when you look at this game. Auburn had some momentum going in. They've been playing very well, just as well as LSU, if not better to this point. Their one loss came, I believe, against UConn in the battle for Atlantis, which I watched. And if you look at Auburn, they're just really talented. In my opinion, they're the most talented team in the SEC. You got a list of Jabari Smith. You got Flanagan, who I didn't even know was supposed to like a French first-round pick, but Flanagan's a French first-round pick. So you got 2 first-round picks right there. Smith, obviously, like a top 5, top 3 pick. Then you throw in Kessler, and Kessler is just a whole different animal that you have to account for. You throw those 3, and then Jasper, I think, is fine. Katie Johnson's a fine player. This is an incredibly, incredibly talented team. Will they win? Will they win the SEC? I have no idea. But they are a talented team. They're not like a juggernaut team. They're not Gonzaga or Baylor of last year, but they are a very, very talented team, and they, even with their flaws, they're able to overcome it with that talent. And like you see on defense, mistakes they have, Kessler cleans up. On offense, mistakes they have, Smith can clean it up with a mid-range jumper or just a 3. So it's an incredibly talented team, and in this type of game, in this type of environment, I didn't have high expectations for LSU going in. I went into this game assuming LSU was going to go down double digits in the first half, and they did. Obviously, 18-1 is kind of drastic, but it's kind of what LSU's done to this point this year. They're not talented enough to just come out and beat the doors off people. They're not. Auburn is, and that's kind of a difference in how these two play. If LSU had Adam Miller, we'd probably be having a very different conversation right now. Auburn has everybody healthy. They have 2 first-round draft picks. Let's say Tari Eason, I think, is probably a first-round draft pick. And this isn't to say Auburn is going to win the SEC because it's basketball. You know, who knows how things are going to shake out in 2.5 months. That's another thing we have to consider here. This is the first of 18 games, and then we have the conference tournament. This is a 2.5-month marathon, all right? This is the first mile of the marathon. If you're going to lose your mind over the first mile of the marathon, you might as well not even run the rest of the race. So I say that because I know I haven't been through all of the wars of LSU, but I've covered and I've watched college basketball for a decent amount of time. The first game is the least important of the 18. And for LSU to get this game out of the way against, again, the most talented team in the SEC is a good thing. And on the road, right? LSU hasn't been on the road before. This would be more alarming if they had lost at home, but they didn't. And it would be more alarming if they lost to like Texas A&M, but they didn't. They lost to Auburn. So I just want everybody to take a deep breath. Y'all promised me on the board, for those of you who are on our board, y'all promised me that we would not burn things down and that we would not lose our minds if LSU lost this game. And so let's let this team play out. I really don't think this is that bad of a loss at all. The offense is very concerning, yes, but we knew that coming into this game. LSU is going to win games with its defense and rebounding. They're going to have to rebound better than they did today, even though I thought they did a fine job. Let me look at the stats. Auburn out rebounded them by 6, and the disparity was really on the defensive glass. I didn't think it was that bad, but they're gonna have to continue to defend at a high level, and then the offense is gonna have to come with it. They had opportunities, right? We've talked about it on the board throughout the game. The opportunities were there. It's just Days, Eason, Reed were unable to really capitalize on those. So again, I don't think this is a bad loss. I think that this is something that the team will grow from, and I firmly believe in college basketball there are lessons to be learned throughout the season, and this is one of those moments where they have to learn. This isn't going to eliminate them from the tournament. This is not going to be a loss that they can't bounce back from. I will say that there are still 6 more very, very difficult games on the schedule moving forward, but none of those 6 teams, in my opinion, are as talented as Auburn. Some of those are at home. They have Kentucky January 4th, which is going to be a really, really, really difficult game at home. And if y'all read my story, I predicted Kentucky to win that game too. And then LSU kind of finds their footing and gets going from there. So LSU, I predicted to start off 0-2 in conference and still finish 4-3 in this first 7 games. If they go 4-3, even if they go 3-4, this team is going to be perfectly fine. If they go 2-5, 1-6, 0-7, then we can talk about a really, really big problem this team has. But I don't think that's going to happen because I think we saw, even with them playing as poor as they did today on the offensive side of the ball, just horrendous, they were within 6 with 6 minutes left. And that's spotting a team an 18-1 lead. That's coming out in the second half and going down 17. This team just has the ability to get back in games because of its defense and because of its athleticism at times. So I think getting Brandon Murray back is a big deal, and I'm just assuming that it's not a bad injury at this point. But I think this team's going to be fine. And I didn't see anything tonight that made me change what I already knew, right? Or what I believed. This team's going to have off nights. This team went to overtime with Penn State. That is a bigger red flag than losing to Auburn on the road, right? Like, there have been bigger they trailed at halftime to Texas State. Like, there have been bigger red flags to this point than a loss on the road to Auburn. This is not a red flag here. I think they're going to hang in there with Kentucky. They'll have a chance to beat them. I don't know if they will or not. Then you got Tennessee, and you go from there, and we'll see how it plays out. But this is not the loss that's going to put me, and I don't think should put fans, over the edge or the downslope of what this team can be. So, yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Again, I tweeted out December 20th. I posted on our board. We're not burning everything down. So just take it for what it is. You just got to see some Justice Williams. I will say Auburn's home crowd was amazing, and LSU, I assume, to be able to replicate that type of environment come January 4th. So that's what I'm excited for. So thank you all for joining me. If you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, send to your friends. Let me know what you think in the comments or on our VIP board over at Go247. Thank y'all for joining me for this instant reaction. Maybe do some of this stuff for away games. Home games is a little different. Obviously, I'm on site, whatnot. So we'll see how it all plays out. But thank y'all for joining me, and I'll talk to y'all later.